In the quiet town of St. Mary's, Idaho, where the Clearwater River meandered through lush forests and rolling hills, a scandal was brewing that would shake the community to its core. The year was 2017, and St. Joseph's Catholic Church stood as a beacon of faith and morality for the town's 3,000 residents. Its weathered stone facade and towering spire had witnessed generations of baptisms, weddings, and funerals, a silent guardian of the town's spiritual life. Father Thomas Byrne had served as the parish priest at St. Joseph's for over 2 decades. At 58, his salt and pepper hair and kind blue eyes were as familiar to the townspeople as the church bells that rang every Sunday morning. He was known for his gentle demeanor and wise counsel, a pillar of the community that many turned to in times of need. Among his most devoted parishioners was Marie Callahan, a 42-year-old mother of 3 and wife to local hardware store owner Patrick Callahan. Marie, with her auburn hair and warm smile, was a fixture at church events, leading the choir and organizing fundraisers with tireless enthusiasm. To all outward appearances, the Callahans were the picture of a happy, devout family. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming in the foundation of their marriage. Patrick, consumed by the struggles of keeping his business afloat in an increasingly digital world, had become distant and irritable. Long hours at the store and constant worry about finances left little time or energy for his family. Marie, feeling neglected and unappreciated, threw herself even more fervently into her church activities, seeking the emotional connection she was missing at home. It was during one of the church's late-night planning sessions for the annual summer festival that Marie found herself alone with Father Byrne in his office. As they pored over budgets and schedules, their hands accidentally brushed. The brief contact and sent an unexpected jolt through Marie, awakening feelings she had long suppressed. Father Byrne, too, felt the spark. In that moment, years of loneliness and unspoken desires bubbled to the surface. Their eyes met, and in the silence that followed, a wordless understanding passed between them. Both quickly looked away, flustered and confused by the sudden tension in the air. In the weeks that followed, Marie found herself seeking out Father Byrne's company more frequently. She volunteered for additional church duties, lingered after Mass to discuss Scripture, anything to spend more time in his presence. Father Byrne, for his part, looked forward to these encounters with an eagerness that both thrilled and troubled him. Their conversations, once focused on church matters, began to take on a more personal tone. Marie confided in Father Byrne about her marital troubles, the emotional distance she felt from Patrick. Father Byrne listened with compassion, offering words of comfort and understanding that seemed to go beyond his role as a spiritual advisor. As spring turned to summer, the attraction between Marie and Father Byrne grew stronger. Stolen glances during Mass, lingering touches as they passed hymn books, the air between them charged with unspoken desire. Both knew the dangerous territory they were entering, but neither seemed able to stop the momentum of their growing feelings. The annual St. Joseph's Summer Festival provided the perfect cover for more frequent meetings. As co-organizers, Marie and Father Byrne had legitimate reasons to spend long hours together, planning and preparing. It was during one such late-night session, as they worked alone in the church hall, that their restraint finally broke. As Marie reached across the table to point out something on the festival layout, Father Byrne caught her hand in his. Time seemed to stand still as they gazed at each other, years of longing and forbidden desire culminating in this moment. Slowly, inexorably, they leaned towards each other, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both tender and passionate. The kiss lasted only seconds, but its impact was seismic. As they pulled apart, both were breathless, exhilarated, and terrified by what they had done. Father Byrne stumbled back, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. "Marie, we can't. This is wrong." Marie, her heart racing, reached out to him. "Thomas, please, don't tell me you don't feel this too. We can't deny what's between us." What followed was a tormented discussion, filled with declarations of love, expressions of guilt, and desperate attempts to rationalize their feelings. In the end, despite their better judgment, neither could bring themselves to walk away from the connection they had found. Thus began their clandestine affair. They met in secret, using church activities as a cover. The rectory, once a symbol of Father Byrne's devotion to God, became the stage for their forbidden encounters. Each time they promised themselves it would be the last, but the pull between them was too strong to resist. As summer progressed, their behavior became more reckless. They took greater risks, meeting more frequently and in less secluded locations. The thrill of their secret relationship, combined with the constant fear of discovery, created an intoxicating cocktail of emotions that clouded their judgment. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially in small towns like St. Mary's. Mrs. Donnelly, the sharp-eyed church secretary, began to notice Marie's frequent visits to the rectory at odd hours. Tom Sullivan, the elderly groundskeeper, once glimpsed Father Byrne and Marie in what appeared to be an intimate embrace in the church garden. Rumors began to circulate. At first just whispers among the gossipy members of the church ladies' auxiliary. But as summer turned to fall, the whispers grew louder, spreading through the town like wildfire. People began to look at Father Byrne and Marie differently, their once innocent interactions now viewed through a lens of suspicion. Patrick Callahan, initially oblivious to the changes in his wife's behavior, started to notice the sideways glances and hushed conversations that would stop abruptly when he entered a room. At first, he dismissed it as small-town gossip, but as the weeks went by, doubt began to gnaw at him. Marie, caught up in the whirlwind of her affair, failed to notice the growing suspicion around her. She became careless, leaving her phone unlocked, forgetting to delete text messages from Father Byrne. Her children, particularly her teenage daughter Erin, began to notice their mother's frequent absences and distracted behavior. The situation came to a head on a chilly October evening. Patrick, his suspicions finally overwhelming him, decided to follow Marie when she left for a supposed church committee meeting. His pursuit led him to the rectory, where he witnessed his wife slipping through the side door, Father Byrne ushering her in with a familiarity that sent a chill down Patrick's spine. For several long moments, Patrick sat in his truck, his mind reeling from what he had seen. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. Marie's distant behavior, the whispers around town, the long hours spent at church activities. A cold rage began to build within him, fueled by betrayal and humiliation. Inside the rectory, Marie and Father Byrne were oblivious to the storm brewing outside. They embraced, lost in their illicit passion, believing themselves safe in the privacy of the priest's quarters. It was in this compromising position that Patrick found them as he burst through the door, his face contorted with fury. "How could you?" Patrick roared, his voice shattering the quiet of the evening. In the house of God, Marie and Father Byrne sprang apart, their faces pale with shock and fear. Father Byrne, his clerical collar askew, raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Patrick, please, let's talk about this calmly," he began, but his words only seemed to fuel Patrick's anger. Marie, tears streaming down her face, pleaded with her husband. "Patrick, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Please, let's just go home and talk." But Patrick was beyond reason. In a flash of movement, he grabbed a heavy brass candlestick from a nearby table. Father Byrne, realizing the danger, tried to step between Patrick and Marie. The first blow caught Father Byrne on the side of the head, sending him stumbling backward. Patrick, consumed by rage, continued his assault. Each strike of the candlestick was punctuated by Patrick's anguished cries, a mixture of pain and fury. Marie screamed, trying to pull Patrick away, but he shoved her aside, his focus entirely on the fallen priest. The sickening sound of metal meeting flesh echoed through the rectory. When Patrick finally stopped, Father Byrne lay motionless on the floor, his clerical collar torn, blood pooling beneath his battered head. The brass candlestick, now stained crimson, fell from Patrick's trembling hands. The reality of what he had done slowly dawned on Patrick. He looked at his bloodied hands, then at Marie huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with horror. Without a word, he turned and fled the rectory, leaving behind a scene of carnage and the shattered remnants of their life. As Patrick's car screeched away into the night, Marie, still in shock, crawled to Father Byrne's side. With shaking hands, she felt for a pulse, but found none. The man she had loved, the catalyst for this tragedy, was gone. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder as they approached the church. Someone, perhaps a neighbor who had heard the commotion, had called the police. Marie knew that in moments her world would change forever. As blue and red lights illuminated the stained glass windows of St. Joseph's, casting eerie shadows across the rectory floor, Marie closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had transpired. The affair that had begun with stolen glances and secret meetings had ended in violence and death. forever altering the lives of all involved and shaking the foundations of the community they called home. The quiet town of St. Mary's, which had prided itself on its strong moral values and tight-knit community, would never be the same. The scandal that had brewed behind closed doors had erupted into a tragedy that would leave scars for years to come. A stark reminder of the destructive power of secrets and the far-reaching consequences of betrayal. In the days that followed, St. Mary's was plunged into chaos. The news of Father Byrne's death and the circumstances surrounding it spread through the town like wildfire. Parishioners gathered outside St. Joseph's, some weeping, others demanding answers. The church, once a place of solace and community, now stood as a grim reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. The police investigation moved swiftly. Detective Sarah Lawson, a 20-year veteran of the Idaho State Police, took charge of the case. As she pieced together the events leading up to Father Byrne's death, the complex web of relationships and secrets that had been hidden beneath St. Mary's placid surface began to unravel. Marie Callahan, still in shock, was taken into custody for questioning. Her initial statement was fragmented and confused, but as the hours wore on, the full story of her affair with Father Byrne emerged. She spoke of loneliness, of feeling neglected in her marriage, and of the deep emotional connection she had found with the priest. Patrick Callahan was apprehended the following day at a motel just outside of Boise. He offered no resistance, seeming almost relieved to be caught. In his confession, he spoke of the rage and betrayal that had overwhelmed him, describing how the sight of his wife in Father Byrne's arms had shattered his world. As the investigation progressed, more details came to light. Mrs. Donnelly, the church secretary, provided crucial testimony about the frequent meetings between Marie and Father Byrne. Tom Sullivan, the groundskeeper, reluctantly shared what he had seen in the church garden. Even Marie and Patrick's children were interviewed, their statements painting a picture of a family that had been slowly falling apart long before the affair began. The town of St. Mary's found itself divided. Some rallied around Marie, seeing her as a victim of circumstance and Father Byrne's betrayal of his vows. Others condemned her, viewing her affair as a betrayal not just of her marriage, but of the entire community's trust. Patrick, too, found both supporters and detractors, those who understood his violent reaction and those who were horrified by it. The Catholic Church, rocked by the scandal, launched its own internal investigation. The bishop arrived from the diocese, expressing shock and sadness at the events that had transpired. He announced that St. Joseph's would be closed temporarily, a decision that left many in the community feeling bereft and angry. As weeks turned into months, the legal process ground on. Patrick Callahan was charged with second-degree murder, his lawyers arguing for a reduced charge of manslaughter due to extreme emotional distress. Marie faced no criminal charges but found herself at the center of a different kind of trial, that of public opinion. The Callahan children, caught in the middle of their parents' tragedy, struggled to cope. Erin, the eldest at 17, became withdrawn and angry, lashing out at both her mother and the community that now whispered about her family. The younger children, confused and frightened, were sent to stay with relatives, their lives uprooted by forces they couldn't fully understand. St. Mary's itself was forever changed. The tight-knit community that had once prided itself on its values and neighborly spirit now found itself fractured. Long-standing friendships were strained or broken as people took sides in the ongoing drama. The hardware store, once a hub of local activity, stood empty and forlorn, a silent reminder of the Callahan family's fall from grace. As the case moved towards trial, national media descended on St. Mary's. News vans lined the streets, reporters accosting locals for quotes and insights into the town's dark secret. Many residents resented the intrusion, feeling that their community's tragedy was being turned into a spectacle for the rest of the country. The trial of Patrick Callahan began on a cold January morning, nearly 3 months after Father Byrne's death. The small county courthouse was packed, with spectators lining up hours before the doors opened, hoping to secure a seat for what promised to be the most sensational trial in St. Mary's history. Over the next 2 weeks, a parade of witnesses took the stand. Marie Callahan's testimony was particularly heart-wrenching. She spoke of her loneliness, her growing attraction to Father Byrne, and the guilt and excitement of their affair. Her voice broke as she described the fatal night, the horror of seeing her husband attack her lover. Patrick Callahan, looking haggard and defeated, also took the stand. He spoke of his struggles with the failing business, of feeling disconnected from his wife, and of the blind rage that had overtaken him when he discovered the affair. His lawyer painted a picture of a man pushed to the brink, arguing that the crime was one of passion, not premeditation. As the trial neared its conclusion, St. Mary's held its collective breath. The case had reopened old wounds and exposed the dark undercurrents that could exist even in the most picturesque of communities. Whatever the verdict, the town knew that nothing would ever be the same. In the end, the jury found Patrick Callahan guilty of voluntary manslaughter, a lesser charge than the second-degree murder the prosecution had sought. The judge, taking into account the circumstances of the crime and Patrick's lack of prior criminal history, sentenced him to 12 years in state prison. The verdict and sentencing were met with mixed reactions in St. Mary's. Some felt justice had been served, while others believed the punishment was too lenient for the taking of a life. Marie Callahan, her face a mask of grief and guilt, left the courthouse surrounded by a phalanx of family members, ducking past reporters shouting questions. In the months and years that followed, St. Mary's struggled to heal. St. Joseph's Church eventually reopened under new leadership, but attendance never fully recovered. Many parishioners, their faith shaken by the scandal, drifted away from the church or sought spiritual guidance elsewhere. Marie Callahan, ostracized by much of the community, eventually left St. Mary's with her children. The constant whispers and judgmental glances had become too much to bear. She moved to a city several states away, hoping to start anew where her past was unknown. Patrick Callahan began serving his sentence at the Idaho State Correctional Institution. The once proud business owner now found himself in a world far removed from the comfortable life he had known. He threw himself into prison rehabilitation programs, determined to use his time to understand and atone for his actions. As for St. Mary's itself, the town that had prided itself on its wholesome image now grappled with its newfound notoriety. The scandal had exposed the cracks beneath the surface of small-town life, the gossip, the secrets, the judgments that had always simmered just below the veneer of neighborly warmth.